Roughneck 9-1, The Extraordinary Story of a Special Forces A-Team at War, by Sergeant First Class Frank Antenori, U.S. Army Retired, and Hans Halberstadt. Narrated by Patrick Lawlor. Copyright 2006 by Frank Antenori. This unabridged audiobook is published by arrangement with Frank Antenori, Hans Halberstadt, and Trident Media Group, and was produced in the year 2006 by Tantor Media Incorporated, which holds the copyright thereto. Author's Note. This book is based on the recollections of Sergeant First Class Frank Antenori, a retired member of the U.S. Army. Conversations with others are recreated from his memory. The authors have attempted to confirm the descriptions of actual events and conversations with the persons involved. Unfortunately, they were prohibited from talking with active duty personnel by Army policy. An advanced copy of the unedited manuscript for this story was submitted to the U.S. Army Special Operations Command, USASOC, for 2 reviews. The first of those reviews consisted of a security review to ensure no information contained within the book inadvertently discloses sensitive or classified information that could prove harmful to current and future operations. Additionally, content was reviewed to ensure that the content included nothing in violation of Army regulations, and it has been approved without changes. However, the content of this book has not been approved or endorsed by the U.S. Army or USASOC Public Affairs Office and is the sole opinion of the authors. Neither the Army nor USASOC in any way influenced the content of, contributed to, or supported the production of any portion of this book. Warning Order. On April 6, 2003, my Special Forces A-Team, along with a few other Americans, encountered a vastly superior enemy force at a remote, strategically essential crossroads near the little village of Debecka, Iraq. Our force consisted of just over 24 Army Green Berets, 3 Air Force controllers, and 2 military intelligence sergeants who volunteered to join us as drivers. Equipped only with 8 Humvees and 2 SUVs for transportation, and armed only with carbines, a few heavy machine guns, and a few Mk-19 grenade launchers, our force was lightly armed and highly vulnerable. We also had about a dozen of the Army's new Javelin anti-tank guided missiles. None of us had ever fired one, and at that time, we were all highly skeptical of their advertised performance. The initial enemy force we encountered included 4 T-55 main battle tanks, 8 MTLB armored personnel carriers, plus about 150 soldiers carried in half a dozen big troop trucks. In addition, the enemy also had heavy artillery support on call and a reserve force of 6 more T-55 main battle tanks and 12 MTLB armored personnel carriers. Unlike some enemy units, this one was well-trained, well-equipped, and well-commanded. Its soldiers and leaders were brave, resourceful, and imaginative, a foe worthy of respect. When discovered, the enemy force had us well within the range of its tank guns and heavy weapons. They deployed skillfully and engaged us in perfect order, catching us totally by surprise. The battlefield was a wide-open stretch of terrain on the valley floor with no place for us to hide. Any normal American light infantry unit that found itself outnumbered over 5-1 and outgunned by such a heavy armored force would have turned and run. They would have called for close air support and artillery to cover their withdrawal and let somebody else do the fighting. But Green Berets just don't operate like conventional units, and we don't like to run. Before the war began, my team made the decision that we would never run from a fight, and we didn't run from this one, despite the odds. We fought just the way we had trained on the practice ranges and in the backwoods of Virginia and North Carolina. We stopped the enemy advance, and then we killed the enemy one by one, until the handful of Iraqi survivors finally fled the battlefield. The 31 of us, lightly armed and equipped, took on an enemy armored task force and destroyed it. At the end of the battle, at least 50 of the enemy lay dead in and around the intersection. 2 of the tanks had been destroyed, along with their crews. All 8 of the armored personnel carriers were destroyed along with their crews, and many of the infantry they had carried were dead on the ground. 4 troop trucks were knocked out, their infantry killed or wounded. Without effective help from American aviation or artillery, our tiny force routed a vastly superior force and captured key terrain for our follow-on forces. During this encounter, while we fought the enemy, hordes of news media made our job harder as well. They didn't just report, they got in our way and at times even tried to tell us what to do. The difficulties were compounded during the peak of the fight when a U.S. Navy F-14 dropped a 500-pound bomb into the middle of a group of supporting Kurdish Peshmerga fighters, killing and wounding dozens of our allies. There have been many important battles by American units in recent years, and this remarkable fight was full of lessons that have been studied carefully in the months since it was fought. The fight validated many years of tactical innovations, many lessons learned from Grenada, Somalia, Panama, Lebanon, the First Gulf War, and Afghanistan. It validated the value of new weapons like the Javelin missile, and the value of old weapons like the M2 machine gun. It also validated the tradition of bravery and leadership that has been cherished by the U.S. Army for more than 200 years. Our fight at Debecka was a test of all the training, the doctrine, and the technology that have been invested in the American Special Operations Forces during the entire 20 years I have been a soldier, and the battle at Debecka showed we passed that test. Almost every man was a hero. One leader, whom I'll refer to throughout as Major X, however, behaved in a way that made many of us question his competence on the battlefield. Along with that, some of his actions appeared to many as a significant lapse of courage, causing most of us to lose respect for him as a combat leader that day. His weak leadership and indecisiveness in the face of the enemy prevented our victory from being complete. I am Sergeant First Class Frank Antenori, U.S. Army retired. I was the team sergeant for Operational Detachment Alpha 391, ODA 391. The story of this amazing battle has been told privately to generals, members of Congress, and senior personnel in government and industry. Some small parts of the story have appeared in the New York Times, on CNN, and in other media, but until now, the complete account of this battle has not been available to the American public. Regulations now permit me to tell the whole story of how my team trained for a battle and how we fought alongside another full team and half of another. Our call sign was Roughneck 9-1, and this is what we did. Introduction. Laying on the mission. Since 9/11, all Special Forces groups have been operating in harm's way on the front lines of the global war on terror, mostly unnoticed by the media or the American public. The business of Special Forces soldiers is a deadly serious one, and keeping it low-key increases our effectiveness. Often we are the only Americans operating in a country, under austere conditions and with very little support from other elements of the U.S. military. Unnoticed anonymity is normal business for us. Our battle at Debecka was unusual in several ways. The first is that we are able to tell you about it at all. If Debecka had been an ordinary Special Forces mission and an ordinary fight, nobody outside the community would have ever heard about it. Our unofficial motto is, "The Quiet Professionals," and that means we do not talk much in public about who we are or what we do, and we especially do not normally tell the public about fights like this one. In this case, though, the U.S. Army and its Special Operations Command, USASOC, decided to make an exception to the tradition. They have already told some of this story and identified some of us by name. The Army made this story public soon after it happened, and for a good reason. It was a remarkable success on many levels. But there was another reason. The commanders of the Special Operations community thought it was time to bring Special Operations into the 21st century. That involved transforming the Special Operations Command from one that once supported other theater combatant commanders to one that would become a combatant command itself. SOCOM would now be supported by other units and eventually become the lead combatant command for the global war on terror. To support this transformation, information about recent successes, including many Special Forces operations in Afghanistan and Iraq, were approved.